Okay, Mayor.
I'd like to call this regular meeting to order. Call roll.
Mayor Querom.
Here.
Councilmember Swanson.
Here.
Mabry. Gomez.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Please stand and join us in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, to get started tonight, anybody have any public comments? Okay, we'll go to Commissioner Newman and for the approval of minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from our regular council meeting on November 16th, 2020. Second.
Motion's been second. Comments? Call roll.
Councilmember Swanson.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
Newman.
Aye.
Mayor Querom.
Aye. Now we'll go to approval invoices and City Clerk Nelson.
In the Department of Accounts and Finances for this period, we have invoices totaling $40,718.37. In the Department of Streets and Public Improvements, we have invoices totaling $119,829.64. In the Department of Public Safety, we have invoices totaling $180,238. And in the Department of Public Property and Utilities, we have invoices totaling $186,075.86. Mayor, all council members present have confirmed their reviews of all invoices and now are submitted for disposition.
I move that we approve the invoices as presented. Second.
Motion's been second. Comments? Call roll.
Councilmember Swanson.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
Newman.
Aye.
Mayor Querom.
Aye. I'll go to regular business and City Clerk Nelson.
Well, are we going to do the water rates first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's do the, well, that's under regular business. I got that under
I guess it is.
business. Yeah, we'll go to water rate findings. We've got Clark Cameron from the Illinois Rural Water Association on screen. And we're going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I appreciate you letting me be here this evening via Zoom, as such as it is. The rate study that I performed for you was, at that point, by far the most complicated I'd ever tried. You guys have, I believe on the water side, 4 loans and 2 different bonds and a number of different rates. So I'm going to put the actual rate study up on the screen and share it, and we'll just go through it page by page, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
This first page, I'm assuming it came up on your screen, okay, correct?
Yep.
Okay. This first page is just a review of your loans and bonds, your 4 different loans and your 2 bonds. And you'll notice that the 1 bond, Series 2014A, will end in 2021, according to the information I received. So that'll be $103,000 it'll free up for you right there. And as we get down here to the bottom, we've just, totaled up all your different payments and everything, and we used 2023 as the average, because that is the year that it, kind of peaks and starts heading a little bit the other direction. So that is your average payments in principal and interest. So that will come into use on this next page. And this is just a review of your information that was sent to me, and your total gallons produced was 273 million. Your total bill was 191,174,907. So you had a unaccounted for water of 81,825,030 gallons, which is 29%, almost 30%. That's a little bit on the high side. Generally, the 12 to 15% is, what's accepted. But that's, I'm not certain how much of that was used at the plant for, backwash maintenance and all that. So but you guys do bill in cubic feet rather than gallons. So that was another one of the little challenges, because everything I received is in gallons, from the water plant. So I had to convert that over. And next down here is your annual operating expenses of $101,335,690. And you added in your annual loan payments for a total of $2,525,142. And if you look over here at your right, it shows your cost to produce that for 100 cubic feet is $3.66. That is just your operating costs. Now, if you figure in your bond payments, that adds another $3.25 to your cubic feet per 100 cubic feet. And as you see down here, I want to point out to you, you're selling your cubic feet, 100 cubic feet for $5. So you're losing on your consumption side. But what's saving you is your base rates here. Your $15, you know, you've got a number of different base rates. That was another one of the big challenges to this, was the amount of different rates you had. You know, trying to figure out the consumption involved with each rate and everything like that. It was a little bit challenging. But we worked through it, and all your different rates right here, 5/8 in pound is 15, 3/4 is 16, 1 inch 17, on up to the 1 inch out of town is $25.50. Now on your commercial side, it ranges from $15 up to $609.50. And you'll see down here on the lower right-hand side, your monthly base rate revenue is $66,340. And you have a $10 a month infrastructure fee that produces you $38,010 per month for total annual base revenue, just off of your base, of $1,252,200. So that covers a pretty good chunk of your expenses right off the bat with your base rate. Your base rate, as you see right here, covers 93.75% of your total expenses. That's pretty good right off the bat. This is just a breakdown of your expenses down here. You know, your wages, pension, insurance, and everything, $729,224. On down the line, it just gives you a breakdown of where all your expenses are. The next page, this basically is just a review until we get down here to show exactly what everything produces for you. Your base rate, like I said, produces $1,252,200. Your consumption rate at that $5 per 100 cubic feet produces you $1,277,907.55 for a total revenue of $2,530,107.55, which by our calculations, with depreciation not factored in, we don't factor in depreciation because it's not a funded account. So by our estimation, you guys were making $4,965.55 worth of profit for last year, which is less than 0.2%. So that's, you know, not going to get you anything as far as any type of maintenance, reserve account, anything. Like I say, the saving factor for you is next year that $100,000 bond will be coming off. So there's $100,000, you know, to put into it. But we came up with a rate change suggestion on the water side of adding 50 cents to the 100 cubic feet used on the consumption side, which brings it to $5.50, which still doesn't bring you up to your, production cost and the cost of your debt. But, you know, with your base rate being fairly high, if you just add the 50 cents to that consumption, that will change your profits up to $132,756 per year, which is 5.26% of your annual budget. Generally, we try and say to a municipality, 10% of your annual budget is a good, you know, savings, but $132,000, you know, annually, and especially next year with that other $100,000 coming off, you guys should be in pretty good shape. So on the sewer side, you also had, you know, 2 loans and 1 bond. And the average of that was the $363,000 and the $50,000 in interest, which again shows up over here. And on the sewer side, you obviously have a huge infiltration issue that I'm sure Tim, you know, knows about and is trying to work on it. It shows that he treated 654 million gallons for, infiltration of 475,765,000 gallons. That's 72%. That's quite a lot. But your production cost on the sewer side is extremely low. $1.12 to treat 1,000 gallons of water is extremely low. And even if you factor in your loan revenue and all your loan expense and everything, that only adds another 63 cents, so you're still less than $2 per 1,000 gallons. So if you work your way through the numbers, your base rate for sewer is $11, which produces you $39,886 per month, $478,632 annually, which is 65% of your annual operating expenses on the sewer side. Again, just a breakdown of your expenses in the pie chart there. I won't waste your time with that. Over here on the next page shows your annual income of being $1,670,038 on the sewer side, showing an annual profit of $460,639 according to our calculations, which is 63% of the profit. So this is something I've never seen our auditors do before, but on the sewer side, they actually said if you want to add that 50 cents on the water, you can subtract 50 on the sewer side and, try and appease the people in town that are going to be upset about a little bit of a raise, and you're still going to be $340,000 to the good on the sewer side. So, that's completely up to you if you want to make that adjustment. Like I say, I had never seen them recommend that before. It kind of surprised me when they did. But, on the water side, the 50 cents per 100 cubic feet, and that's a very minimal raise. People, I would think, would have no complaints about that. And I don't know if you have an ordinance on your books for a 3% annual raise or not, but we do recommend that if you don't, you enact some type of ordinance for that just to keep up with the cost of living. And, any year you don't feel you need that 3%, you just suspend that ordinance and you don't charge it for that year. I went through that awfully fast, I know, and I covered a lot of stuff, but is there any questions that I can answer or help with?
So basically, I'd say, the 50 cents on the water and the 50 cents on the sewer, if we were to go with that recommendation, would pretty much just be a wash.
It would, yes, but it redistributes the funds, from sewer to water.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
On the books, and again, when I'm sure, as you guys know, by the amount of loans you have, when you go to apply for a loan on the water side or the sewer side, they look at strictly the revenues and expenses on that water side. So, that's the only benefit to doing what they suggested.
Clark, how do you recommend we address the 29% loss in revenue on the water that we're processing but not billing for?
Well, I would recommend, first of all, maybe trying to have one of our circuit riders come do a water loss survey for you, see if they can detect any leaks for you around the system. But just, you just have to make sure all your meters are active and, try and have a meter replacement program in place. Again, I'm not sure how much that water went to maintenance of the plant. I'm sure probably 5 to 7% of that's accounted for at the plant.
Sure.
So, you can take that portion off. Firefighting, system flushing, all those things factor into that water loss. So, that 29% is a big number, but I don't know how much of that actually went to useful purposes.
Yeah. You had indicated that 13 to 15 is more commonplace or more of an acceptable percentage.
Yeah, anywhere between 10 to 12, 15 at the high end is usually what they consider the norm for a system your size. But again, you know, you guys have a fairly aging system up there, and you're kind of aware of that to begin with.
Yeah.
The main thing I would say to address it is make sure you've got a meter replacement program, you know, in place, and as many meters in town work as possible. That's a good place to start.
You mean like a wholesale replacement of meters over time because of age?
Yeah, generally, you know, a meter's life is, you know, they generally say 5 to 8 years, you know, depending on what type of meter you're using or whatever. But, you know, just try and have a replacement program in place to where every, you know, 5 to 8 years you can try and get that meter either serviced or replaced.
Sure.
So.
And then leakage would be the other thing, and that would require some survey group or technology to come in and assess that.
Illinois Rural Water has a program in place with our circuit riders, you know, same as this rate study, it doesn't cost you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they'll come in and, you know, just listen to different places around town and try and isolate the leaks for you.
Thanks, Clark.
What I had mentioned earlier about being awash, what I was referring to was our utility bills. People, what they're being billed. I realize you're pumping up the water side and you're losing, you're down on the wastewater. But as far as what residents are being billed, as far as appeasing, you know, they're basically being billed the same.
Correct. Yes, and that's what I say. That way, you know, there should be absolutely no complaints. I mean, a 50-cent raise shouldn't be a big complaint to anyway, to be honest. But you know, it's amazing how people get upset over the smallest things.
Yes, it is.
And I want to try and make it as painless as possible for, you know, the council. That's why I generally like to do these presentations in person, so if people in town, when they get mad at somebody, they can pick me. It takes the pressure off you guys.
Oh, that will never happen. Because you're not the ultimate source of making the decision. You're just providing the information.
Well, true, but, you know, it still gives you guys a little bit of an out to say, you know, we're just acting on his recommendations.
Now, real quick, Clark, right before you go. So in '07, when you looked at when we had the unaccounted for water, in '07 we were at 23%, you know, and now we're at 30%. So we've climbed 7% in unaccounted for water. So if you have over that period of time, 13 years or so, and you climbed up 7%, is that probably more of a water meter issue? I don't know. I don't know why, you know, why we have so much more unaccounted for water now than we did in '07.
You know, it could be a number of factors. You know, again, your system is that many years older than it was back then, so, you know, but meters and, you know, again, I'm not familiar with, you know, how many leaks Tim's had in the system and, you know, what amount of main breaks or whatever he's had to repair. That just varies from year to year. You know, some years, you know, the weather's kind to you and you have very few leaks or breaks. Other years, you know, you go through the cold, hot, you know, the ground shifting, you have a whole lot more breaks than normal. It just varies from year to year.
So it'll probably benefit that when we find exactly the ages of our meters and to see what the life expectancy of each one of them was when they were replaced. Because I know where I'm at, I've had that one since 2005 when I moved in, and it hasn't been replaced since.
You got one of the newer ones then.
That would generally be the first place that I would, you know, start looking is, you know, get an idea of how old your meters are, you know, and see if there's a chance, you know, to upgrade them. And, you know, I can't guarantee that that'll change the water loss, but I'm sure it'll make some difference.
Okay.
Tim, you can identify age of most all the meters we have?
Yes.
Okay.
We have them documented. and they're
And, you know,
well
this doesn't
overdue.
take into account municipal buildings. I don't know, you know, if all your municipal buildings are metered or, you know, what, a municipal pool. You know, I'm not sure about any of those factors.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you know, in '07, we were pumping 420 million gallons a year, and today we're pumping about 273 million, so we're pumping a lot less, about 35% less now than we were in '07. And our unaccountable's gone up 7%, so it's something that we're gonna have to, you know, look at, get on, and find a solution.
that's interesting that you're pumping that much less now than you were then. What, is there one thing that you can pinpoint that'd be different between then and now? Have you lost industries or anything?
Well, we had Perry Plaza left. They did, they were, I think, our #1 water user. And if you go back before then, Harper Wyman was our largest. We lost them. So our two largest water users have left us in the last, 20 years, I guess. And
Okay.
so, you know, back in '95, we were pumping 480 million gallons a year. So we've gradually gone down, and that's between '95 and '07, I think, is Harper Wyman. That would probably account for Harper Wyman leaving.
Yeah, Harper Wyman went out in 2013.
2013, okay. So that was a mixture between '07 and '20 to pump 35% less. So Perry Plaza and Harper Wyman going out.
A new water plant,
Yeah,
using less water.
using less water, yeah, it's more efficient, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Is there anything that I can, you know, explain, or any questions that you had about any of the numbers? I mean, I'm pretty confident in all the numbers that we had, you know, as far as my expenses and revenues and everything came pretty close to what you had based on the numbers and everything, so.
Yeah, I thought your report was really well written, you know, where you wrote in your report, your numbers, everything is well laid out, so I thought it was pretty easy to go through. So, yeah,
I think you've given us
Pretty
the,
good learning experience for me on my end too, because like I said, I've never dealt with nearly this many different rates and, you know, customer classes and everything like that. So it was a challenge, but your staff there, between Teresa and Tim, they answered any question that I had. They were very patient. I certainly appreciate all the help they put forth to get this done.
what do you think about all the different rates that we have? I'm just kind of curious, you haven't seen that before. What do you think, is there an answer to that as far as all the number of rates we have, different rates?
Well, I understand the concept, because the bigger the meter, the more expensive it is, you know, to purchase the meter to begin with, the more expensive the infrastructure, you know, supply that is. You know, you gotta have bigger lines, everything. So I understand the concept, but as far as being the actual person that would have to implement this, if heaven forbid something would happen to Teresa or whoever does the billing for you and somebody fresh had to step in there without the benefit of a computer program, it'd be an absolute nightmare.
Well, I bring that up because you say you haven't seen that in other communities or other water departments.
Well, to qualify that though, most towns I deal with are population 800 and less, usually. So, you know, it's considerably smaller scale than what you guys are. But, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty complex billing system, really, you know, with each different meter size having its own rate and, you know, everything. That's a pretty complex billing system. But, you know, the bottom line is, as long as Teresa or whoever has to work it is comfortable with it, and, you know, that's the same as billing in cubic feet. Most towns don't bill in cubic feet because the water plant, or, you know, on the water side of it's all in gallons. So.
Clark, any recommendations if we wanted to learn more about what other communities are doing, and maybe if they have a more simplified way to process billing? Any suggestions or where you could point us to learn more about this?
I've never been asked that before,
Okay.
so,
Right.
no, I mean, I could give you some examples of what some other towns your size are maybe doing. you know, and let you go from there, or maybe, you know, give you some examples of towns your size that I've done rate studies for, that maybe if Teresa wanted to reach out to them and, you know, talk about their billing, something like that, but other than that, I really don't know where to steer you.
If something comes to mind, you could send off to Teresa, just a pointer in a direction of maybe we could learn a little bit more, that might be helpful to us.
Well, certainly,
Okay.
yeah, what I'll do is I'll talk to the secretaries in the office, and, because they're more familiar with everybody's billing practices and stuff, and they help some of the clerks along the way, so
Sure.
I will speak to them, but I do have some other, I just, after you guys, I just tackled Chester, Illinois, which is roughly the same size as you guys and has just as many complications. They've got 3 prisons with the state paying money. So the state somehow pays 63.4% of their sewer expenses.
Hmm.
But I'll send you a copy of their rate structure and see if that helps. It's a little less complicated, not a whole lot.
Okay. All right, Clark, thanks.
I appreciate your time tonight, and if you have any questions or we can be of any help in the future, please let me know.
Thanks, Clark, appreciate it, and your time tonight as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, have a good night.
Are we done then, or?
Yeah.
All right.
You
Well,
can hit leave meeting.
The Zoom thing's so weird, I never know when to, bow out and when not.
No, we're good.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll continue regular business with City Clerk Nelson.
Next item on the agenda is ordinance O-20-015. This is the second and final reading of an ordinance acting on a plan commission recommendation for rezoning property from business B2 to residential R3. This is at 530 West Peru Street. Mayor, all council members have reviewed this ordinance and it is submitted for disposition.
I move that we approve ordinance O-20-015.
Second.
Motion's been second. Comments? Call roll.
Councilmember Swanson.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
Newman.
Aye.
Mayor Querem.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is ordinance O-20-016. This is the first reading of the annual tax levy ordinance, levying taxes for corporate purposes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of May 2021 and ending on the 30th day of April 2022. Mayor, all council members have reviewed this ordinance and it is submitted for disposition.
I move that we advance ordinance O-20-016 to the second reading.
Second.
Motion's been second. Teresa, I'm going to turn it over to you if you have anything you want to add on this.
Sure. In looking at the levies here, last year you levied approximately 4.965%, and so this year we'll be looking at a 4.903, so just a little bit of a less amount. However, you're accounting for the EAV increase, so you're increasing a little bit, but that percentage is a little bit less. Obviously, we want to stay as low as we possibly can on that, and we're trying to be as creative as we can this year to try and keep the levies where they were last year, at least to stay stable. Obviously, we'd like to be able to increase them, but we're going to have to stay stable. The biggest hindrance that we're hitting, as with most communities, is the pensions, with the fire and police pension. Lauterbach, we went back and forth on this quite a bit. They make recommendations on what we should levy for the pensions based on the actuarials. They'd like us to hit 100% where we should be at, and I think you guys may have had those figures on the I don't know, did you guys see the spreadsheet? No? Okay. Well, just in a nutshell, we're about 59,000 off on each of them out of over 650,000, so it's not as bad as it seems. How should I explain this the best? We have to be 90% funded by 2040. So we need to levy higher amounts in those two pensions to be able to get to that point. In the past, it seems that the levies were being set at the minimum that was being required. So as you can see, we're playing catch-up now. We're having to set those a little bit higher to play catch-up to get to that 90% by 2040. Obviously, we want to be 100% by 2040, but we're only mandated to be at 90%. So this year, what we're going to try to do is, in order to keep the levies stable as possible, is be creative and set these for the pensions. We won't be at what Lauterbach actually would like us to be at that 100%. We'll be short about 118 divided between the two. And we have a couple of opportunities coming up, not to go into specifics, but some one-time revenue that we may see this next year, that when that comes in, we will put that towards the pension. And we've agreed to be very diligent about doing that. Try to stay on the schedule that Lauterbach has us for the pension. Now, we don't know with in the next couple of years when they do the consolidation of the pension funds for police and fire, what that's going to look like, and Lauterbach cannot predict what that's going to look like either. So there's a couple of things floating up in the air, but we're going to stick to the plan that we have. The issue that we're going to face the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to end up with this $120,000, $150,000 gap every year is what it's looking like. So we need to keep that in mind. So we got to pick up some revenue somewhere, some increases in revenue to be able to cover that shortfall. We can't guarantee you're always going to have this one-time revenue that may come in. So we have to plan for that. And I think Lauterbach should be able to, based on my conversation with them, come up with a 2 to 3 year prediction on what that should look like. So, any questions on that?
So if we retire some debt over the next 2 to 5 years, we could again apply some of that revenue towards.
Now keep in mind though, there's a lot of other projects coming in that we're trying to apply that towards. So.
But it's something at least that might help us if we don't need it.
They actually pointed out something, and the mayor was on the phone with me with Lauterbach, is that the interesting thing about Princeton, they said, was a lot of communities are having to take from their general fund to pay the pensions, and we haven't had to do that. So by keeping everything stable on the other end, we're trying to minimize that from happening. So.
I understand.
The other thing, these pensions, they're going to be a challenge for us, as Teresa mentioned. They're going to be a challenge for us in the many years to come. And to give you an example of what it's affecting us this year, as Teresa, I'm going to add to that, everything that we levy for, street and bridge work, or the Social Security, IMRS, school crossing guard, or audit, everything that we're levying for remains the same as last year's levy. So we have not increased any of those. So that means that if we see an increase in workers' compensation premiums, liability, Social Security, anything, we see an increase because we're leaving the levies as they were last year. We're going to have to come up with that revenue somewhere else throughout 2021. So the pension problem is it's significant, and we're going to have to deal with this for many years to come. And like Teresa said, we're going to be hitting these gaps year to year. So, and we can't leave these other levies stagnant forever. They're going to have to go up as well. They are remaining the same now, but for this year, for 2021. So, any other questions, comments? Okay, motion's been second. Call roll.
Councilmember Swanson.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
Newman.
Aye.
Mayor Querem.
Aye. Then we'll go to city manager report. Thanks, Pete.
Before I get too far into this, I want to say a big thank you, because I don't think we thank him enough, Stephen, for all the IT stuff he's doing for us. He's been...
Where is Stephen? He leave?
He's
yeah.
I was going to say, he's always the man behind the scenes here, so...
Yeah, the man behind the curtain.
I've never worked with somebody so innovative and dedicated to this stuff, so thank you, Stephen, for everything that you're doing. You're even set up the next meeting that we're going to have, because we got to figure it out. So thank you for everything that you're doing. In your package, you have the police pension, fire pension for October 2020. You also have in there your monthly financial report. And if you want to flip to your financial report, we're about a little over the halfway point for this report. So we're falling, if you see your revenue expense surplus down at the bottom there, we're hitting about right where we should be. Some things are gonna be off a little bit because of when, some of the debt payments are being made, and, there's some funds that get transferred, like for IT, things get transferred from one department to another, and some of those have not happened yet, so, in the charts, if you go to page 5, one of them, like if you look at wastewater there, you'll see the expenses versus budget, it's gonna look a little bit tipped compared to the rest of them, and that's because when debt payments were made and some of the capital expenditures that Tim's been facing this year, so. Let's see here. I'm gonna go to page 8, because we like to keep an eye on the sales tax there. Still staying pretty, I'd say, stable in our sales tax, so that's good. Hopefully we'll see that popping up a little bit as the holidays are coming too. Hotel motel jumped back up, so that's great for tourism. We'll have some of that revenue coming in for them as well. On the back sheet, you'll see your police and fire activity for October. 128 fire calls. It just seems unreal when you see that number. Fire department had 469 calls responded to, so very, very busy, as we can hear here at City Hall. Next meeting, just so you have a heads up, crossing my fingers, I'm working on them right now. We should have the budget amendment for you guys to look at the next meeting. So. And the schedule for the upcoming budget for next year.
Anybody have any questions? I just have one item under my mayor report. Greg Fisher has been employed with the city of Princeton for almost 42 years. Greg was the first person I ever knew when we were in Princeton. He was right down the street and we were friends, but it's hard to believe it. He retired, so he spent 42-year career with the city of Princeton. Dedicated employee. So congratulations to Greg and his retirement. Do we have any old business tonight? Any new business? Any public comment? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene.
I move that we adjourn our meeting this evening and reconvene for our next council meeting on Monday, December 21st, 2020, 7 o'clock at City Hall. Changes in meeting format or location other than the City Hall will be announced in advance.
Second.
Motion's been second. Call roll.
Councilmember Swanson.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
Newman.
Aye.
Querom.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
I laughed when I drove by and the guy on the. Okay. What?
Well, she did.